Hi, everyone. Welcome. Sandra Crow here. I'm the author of Scent Strangling Isn't an Option, about how to deal with difficult people. And it's not about men. People always ask me that. It's not about men. Or children, for that matter. And then also, I didn't sign up for the 7 strategies for dealing with difficulty in difficult times. In the scenario that I outline in my book, I didn't sign up for this, where I had a chemical injury. I had the opportunity to learn about all different kinds of alternative medicine. And so I developed a passion for learning about different types of medicine. And in the process, also even got Lyme disease. So I tell you that because I have a little bit of background in alternative medicine. And for that reason, can very much appreciate Dr. Cowden, Dr. Lee Cowden, and all that he brings to the table. So let me read you a moment about him. And then Dr. Cowden, if you would, because I want people to really get the expansiveness of your background. And so this is just a very small snippet. Dr. Lee Cowden is a USA board certified cardiologist and internist who is internationally known for his knowledge and skill in practicing and teaching integrative medicine. He has co-authored many books, again, I'd like you just to name 4 of the ones that I saw, and articles on integrative medicine, and has pioneered successful treatments of cancer, autism. Each one of these is their own category: cancer, autism, Lyme disease, and many other illnesses. He had a private practice from 1984 through 1987 in St. Louis, and from 1988 to the present in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. And as I recently listened to and was able to watch The Truth About Cancer, and by the way, if you don't know about The Truth About Cancer, it's Ty Bollinger has put this wonderful program together of different cancer panelists, and I know Dr. Cowden, you were part of that as well. But actually, the way I learned about you was from Dr. Mercola, who has spoken about you very highly and talks about, all the wonderful things that you've done in all the arenas that you enter. And I know you're his personal physician as well. So, which is in itself its own accolade. So welcome. And could you please just read people? I had your books up and then I lost the page. Could you just tell people the names of your books so they can see the vastness of the arenas in which you delve?
Yes, thank you for having me on. And I want to make one correction on the intro that you did there. I was in private practice until 2009. In 2008, I started working with the Academy of Comprehensive Integrative Medicine out of Panama City, Panama. And that was supposed to be a part-time gig. But by the spring of 2009, I was putting in 50 hours a week for the academy and 50 hours a week for the practice. And I thought 20 years earlier, I could do that pretty well, but probably not a good idea at my present age.
Right.
So I made a decision to
but you also talk about anti-aging, right? So
that's right. Yeah. Well, one of the books I wrote is on longevity.
Right.
That was many years ago. But the more recent books that I wrote that your listeners probably be interested in seeking out are Create a Toxin-Free Body and Home. And that's the primary topic of what we're going to talk about today. Create a Toxin-Free Body and Home was written in 2014 by myself and Connie Strassheim.
Okay.
And that's on Amazon and other places. And then the second book is Foods That Fit a Unique You. And that's also very, very, very important if you're talking about cancer, but also all types of other chronic diseases. And I also wrote that with Connie. And then the third book I wrote in 2014 was Bioenergetic Tools for Wellness. And that one's available only on Amazon.
Is that one about, when you say bioenergetic tools, is that like self tools, like tapping that you do with yourself, or they're actually physical tools?
Both.
Machines.
Yeah, we talk about things that can be done by the patient at home. We talk about things that can be done by the practitioner for the patient at the office. We talk about electrodermal screening and kinesiology, and on the evaluative side, we talk about all types of techniques like the King method, Jin Jitsu, Kiki Jutsu, and as far as hands-on techniques that cost nothing, just a little bit of knowledge, and also tools like the $20,000 pulsed electromagnetic field devices all the way down to the fairly inexpensive infrared light therapy devices.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's great. That's fantastic to know. And also, the other thing I just want to point out, because I was just doing a little research on you before we got on, and that your Lyme disease, the success, especially for the people out there who have Lyme disease, the success of your Lyme disease protocol, and you wrote a book around that as well. Is that correct?
I contributed to several books on that, but didn't write one myself. I contributed to one that Connie wrote, or two of the books that Connie wrote, Connie Strassheim wrote, and also have information about that in one of the books that Dr. Sinatra wrote. But I talked about Lyme carditis in there. So, the Lyme disease is an epidemic in the United States especially, but it's becoming prevalent in every country around the world. The United States Center for Disease Control says that there's at least 300,000 new cases in the United States every year. And they're probably underestimating that by a factor of 2 at least. And so it's the most rapidly growing infectious disease in the United States by far. And it's found on every continent. Well, maybe not Antarctica, but every continent besides that. And it's becoming epidemic in every country. And what I found is that when you use standard pharmaceutical antibiotics, after about the 4th week of illness, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so you have to find other ways to get rid of the infection. So sometimes it's oxidative therapies and pulse magnetic therapies, and sometimes it's herbal therapies and homeopathic therapies, or a combination of all the above. And when you do that combination approach, we have excellent results. We took a group of patients in 2003 that were given no hope by the allopathic Lyme literate physician who had already failed all the antibiotic therapies, and in that group of patients, by the 10th week, we had a 70% improvement in our integrative treatment group. By the 18th week, a 90% improvement. And many patients from that group that continued on in the program after that got their life back, even though they were prognosticated to never have a life, not ever go to college, have a job, get married, blah, blah, blah.
I saw the results of that study that you released. It was really pretty amazing, especially if somebody who's had Lyme's disease. I can really appreciate how challenging that is, especially with the co-infections. Was everybody given the same panel of treatment, the same standard of care, or did you, with muscle testing, did you make it individual for each case?
In that pilot study, we did muscle testing to determine what the best therapy was for each patient. And so there was certain therapies that were uniform to all patients, like magnesium malate was in every patient, some type of homeopathic or herbal drainage remedy to get the toxins out of the liver, kidneys, urinary bladder, gallbladder, lymphatic system, etc. And there were herbal antimicrobials that also had anti-inflammatory effect in all the integrative treatment patients. And there were, proteolytic enzymes 30 minutes before food with water only, which is very important not only for Lyme disease, but also for cancer. And
say that again for people. So you proteolytic enzymes, right? So we're talking like, the German Wob enzyme as an example. So
Wob enzyme is one of the ones that's been around the longest and studied the best. They have about $10 million worth of studies in Germany on using Wob enzyme as a monotherapy for cancer with good results. But we interjectly tested to see which enzyme each patient needed. So some patients got bromelain from pineapples, some patients got papaya leaf, some patients got serrapeptase from Serratia bacteria, and the it's a culture media, or nattokinase from fermented soy, or a lumbrokinase from a bacteria produced in the gut of the earthworm.
Right. So getting the inflammation down was really like the critical piece of that, and does that make it easier to deal with the implications of Lyme for each person of the co-infections?
Absolutely, and we found that homeopathy was important, and so the products that are now used in the Cowden support program, which is used across the world, includes herbs quantum physically imprinted, so the herbs act like a homeopathic and an herbal at the same time.
Oh, wow. I haven't heard of that. Is that in one pill or one
No, no, no.
dosage? You have both, or you're giving people two separate things?
Well, it's an empiric program that arose out of the work we did with Dr. Richard Horowitz with his antibiotic failures in Lyme disease up in New York. And then we also studied that in a study in Germany in a controlled fashion. And so we found that the patients in those two studies improved about 80 or 85% with the empiric Cowden support program, which can be found at nutramedix.ec, NUTRAMEDIX.ec.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a patient goes there, they can see on that website, in Ecuador, they still have freedom of speech, so they can see on that website what would be good to treat this condition of chronic Lyme disease with co-infections. I also sometimes call it multi-symptom multimicrobial inflammation, because sometimes you don't know whether you do or don't have Borrelia as part of it, but you always have inflammation, you always have a variety of microbes.
Right.
And so you can use this program empirically, whether you do or don't have a clear diagnosis of Lyme disease, and still get better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much for that. I know we're going to switch topics here, but I think I just wanted to introduce that because I know there's a lot of people out there with Lyme. I think you're a great resource for that. And I wanted to at least give people a little bit of that background on some of the studies you've done so they could do their own research.
Yeah.
So let's get to the topic at hand today. So we really want to talk about detoxifying in your home, in your body, in your physiology. And are you also tying this into just the whole anti-aging piece? I mean, I imagine they're cousins. It's hard to separate one. I mean, clearly, if you're doing things to make yourself a more free being yourself, a free entity yourself, free of toxins and chemicals and all those things that are so prevalent in our environment, that you are, by happenstance, also supporting yourself in more of the anti-aging process. Okay, so can you start off by just sharing with us some of the principles that kind of tie those pieces together that people should be aware of as they start to want to think about themselves in a more environmentally friendly in their own microbiome as well as their physical environment?
Yeah, a few decades ago, children that were born around the world were actually not very toxic. They were fairly clean, and during the course of their lifetime, they accumulated toxins. Now, when they do the studies from the Environmental Working Group on the analysis of the biopsies on children, they find that they're loaded with toxins by the time they're born, because the toxins are going from the mom through the placenta into the fetus all during the pregnancy.
Yeah.
So we're born with a load of toxins. In the concepts of homotoxicology, we go from health, as we accumulate toxins, we go from health to allergies, from allergies to autoimmunity to aging, and if we continue along that path, we finally go into cancer. And so in the process of healing from cancer, you have to go from cancer to aging and autoimmunity, back to allergies, and finally to health again, by the process of detoxification. And when I say detoxification, I'm not talking about just the physical toxins that we accumulate during our lifetime, which are substantial, both from man-made toxins as well as from biotoxins, the toxins produced by microbes that live in the air that we breathe, or that are in our bodies, that are being produced in our bodies and continually building up the toxic level. But it's also the toxins, the emotional toxins of our life, the emotional traumas that we accumulate, and those emotional toxins cause us to accumulate toxins in our physical toxins in our body in a very specific location. For example, if you have a lot of anger, you're going to build up most of your toxins in your liver and gallbladder and bile ducts. The Chinese taught us this 3,000 years ago, and we're finally confirming that it is so. And we also
can I ask you something about that? I'm thinking a little bit about Candace Pert, Molecules of Emotion, and how our emotions showed up, not as we previously thought from the neck up, but also in our whole physiology. Can you just for a moment just talk about how do you know what that looks like in the liver when?
Yeah.
Have you actually seen that under a microscope? What does anger actually look like in terms of a toxin under a microscope?
Under a microscope, it looks like fatty liver. When you accumulate enough toxins in your liver, the liver develops fat cells in between. The fat cells are trying to take up the toxins that are there to buffer them so that they're not in the hepatocytes. And once you get enough toxin accumulation in the liver, whether it's from alcohol or carbon tetrachloride or
Or anger.
dry cleaning fluids or other things, well, those toxins are throughout our body, but the highest concentration of those toxins that I just mentioned will be in the liver if the patient's primary emotion is anger, frustration.
Yes.
And if the person's primary emotion is fear, then it's going to be in the
The
kidneys, the adrenals, the urinary bladder, the uterus, ovaries, fallopian tubes in women, and the prostate and testes in men. And so the Chinese figured out, where the primary toxins are going to lodge, depending on where the primary emotion is.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that it, like drinking copious amounts of alcohol, shows up in the liver virtually identically as if you were angry all the time, that those two things, even though they're different causations, that they actually physiologically show up in a very similar manner.
Mm-hmm, that's right. Yeah. And so the anger, again, is like a magnet inside that organ, if you will. So the magnet is attracting the toxins into that tissue. It's my belief, and Dr. Hammer's work in Germany helps to confirm this, that the brain is controlling where the autonomic nervous system will be most active, and the autonomic nervous system reaches out into every cell of the body. And so if the primary emotion is anger, then it's going to show up in a specific place in the brain, and it's going to show up in a specific place in the liver and the gallbladder and the bile ducts, because that autonomic nervous system of the liver, gallbladder, and bile ducts is controlled by the area of the brain that houses the emotion of anger.
Well, I mean, I've always known, we know from EFT, I know Dr. Mercola talks about this a lot, the importance of emotions. We know on some level how important it is, but I always feel like emotions don't get the light of importance is not shine on them in the same way the physical toxins are. So I think this is a really important point that you're making about how the contribution of toxins can come from all these different arenas, emotions being just as important a part as the physical toxins.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you can take a patient that comes to you with cancer, and by the physical diagnosis that they have, you can tell what the primary emotional conflict was, and the work that proves that is the work of Reiki Hammer in Germany and his students, Dr. Claude Sabin in France, Dr. Gilbert Renaud in Canada, and others. And so if you have a particular emotional event, it's going to create a very specific type of cancer. And some people say, well, cancer just happens. No, cancer doesn't happen. It happens in a very specific location because of a very specific emotional conflict. And Dr. Hammer proved this by asking his patients with stage 3 and stage 4 cancer the right question so that they had an aha moment. And when they had an aha moment, their cancer went away. And the 5-year survival rate for stage 3 and stage 4 cancers with Dr. Hammer was 92%. In conventional allopathic care, the 5-year survival rate for stage 4 cancer is about 5% on average at best, and for stage 3 about 20% survival on average. So 92% is considerably better than either one of those.
So what you're saying is that healing the trauma can actually heal the cancer, even though it may have progressed just to a certain level?
Yeah.
There's actually a retroactive effect. Cancer can actually act retroactively.
Well, you have to ask all the questions, because Dr. Hammer found that the metastases occur also from very specific emotional conflicts. For example, the emotional conflict of lung metastases is fear of death, and the fear of death comes when the oncologist tells the patient, "Oh, this is a very aggressive cancer you have here, and it's likely to spread and cause death." And so as soon as the patient hears that, they go into the fear of death, and the fear of death causes the toxins to accumulate in the lung, which cause the cancer to develop in the lung. And then they have a cancer in the lung that the doctors call a metastasis.
What would be a better way for, if the doctor sees that and the pathological results, what would be a better way for a doctor to express that to a patient without creating the fear?
Well, first of all, that they must, I think they should say, you do have cancer, and it looks like that treatment is going to be needed. It would be wise for you to not only change your diet, but also change your thinking, do some emotional conflict resolution. And if we don't have the answers here in our clinic to deal with the issues that come up with your cancer, then there's likely somebody on the planet that has the answers for this condition. Instead, they say, there is no hope for your condition, go home and die, in essence.
Right. Right.
And,
They did that to my father. My father had different kind of cancer. He had colon cancer.
yeah.
He said, get your affairs in order.
Yeah. What they typically will say is you have 60 days. And on the 60th day is when those patients usually die. If they heard and believed 60 days, if the patient was told 6 months, they die exactly 6 months later. So the mind is a much more powerful thing than the body, and for good and for negative. So if the oncologists, I think, are participating in homicide when they say to the patient, you have 60 days or you have 90 days, because I've had many patients over the years that were told that by other doctors, and they chose not to believe that. They chose to believe me instead, and they're still alive 20, 30 years later.
Wow, that's a really powerful testament to the power of speech, and also the power that you hold as a physician in dictating people's lives. So what is it? So we've established how prolific toxins are in all these different ways. And obviously there's a lot of like techniques and things that people can do. What is it you want people to know about what they should be doing to clear their own toxic load internally or externally? What do you want to focus on with that message?
Yeah. So listeners can get this picture. They are, if they have an illness, they are in a rowboat out in the middle of the ocean, and the rowboat is taking on water. It's got a hole in the bottom.
Yeah.
And so the typical allopathic medical approach is to take a teacup out and start dipping water out of the boat. Okay. And doing nothing about
with a small spoon.
a small spoon or a teacup, and they should be using a big bucket to bail the boat. But the allopathic medical doctors, unfortunately, in most cases, are not even addressing the cause, which is the hole in the bottom of the boat. So in integrative medicine, we want to find what is the cause of the hole in the bottom of the boat. So if you're talking about the toxic load, then where are the toxins coming from, and how do you stop that massive influx of toxins? Because you cannot get the water in the dirty water in the bathtub to go down if you're continuing to flow massive amounts of dirty water into the bathtub.
Right.
So the dirty water that's flowing into the bathtub might represent the pesticides, herbicides, and other contaminants that they eat on the food every day. It might represent the mercury from the chewing every day when they have mercury amalgams in their teeth. It might represent the heavy metals that they're breathing in the air from the
dryer sheets they use on their clothes every day. Air fresheners they plug in.
Yep, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And not only that, but also the mycotoxins that they're breathing when they live in a moldy environment. That in the United States, we know that if you live inland, that you have a 30 to 50% chance of having mold or fungus in your house where you live, enough to create illness. And if you live on the coast, it's 80 to 90%.
Wow.
So that means that a lot of people in the United States are being affected. In a smaller country like UK, where you're closer to the coast, wherever you are, then it's a higher percentage than it is in the United States.
Wow, that is huge.
Yeah. So the mycotoxins are cancer-causing immune suppressive chemicals produced by the molds and funguses. And whenever you go into a moldy environment, let's say for 30 minutes, and you breathe while you're there, most people do that,
Yeah.
They're getting mold and fungus into their upper airways, and some of those mold and fungi go into the paranasal sinuses, set up home there, and divide, multiply, and produce mycotoxins there. Now, when you're exposed to an electromagnetic field, the mold and fungus that's growing in your body feels threatened by that electromagnetic field, so they grow faster in order to make sure their species survives. In addition to that, the mold and funguses, because they feel threatened, produce more mycotoxins. It's believed that it's at least 600 times more mycotoxin production when you're in a standard electromagnetic field environment. There's very few places on the globe anymore you can go where there's not a strong electromagnetic field from the man-made gadgets.
Right.
Cell phones, electric smart meters, cordless phones, Wi-Fi, etc. So all these conveniences are killing us, literally and figuratively. And so we need to, when we're cleaning up our environment, make sure we first and foremost clean up the electromagnetics of the environment, because the electromagnetics cause a disruption of the gut barrier, causes leaky gut, causes a disruption of the blood-brain barrier, allows toxins to go through the blood-brain barrier into the brain more easily, and then you end up with Alzheimer's, dementia, and other neurological diseases, Parkinson's, ALS, MS, etc.
Well, how do we? I mean, that's like such a big call. I mean, are you talking about putting diodes on everything? Like, how are you?
No. The diodes won't do it. You gotta shield yourself. So, if you're in a standard house close to a neighbor in the United States, or you're in an apartment, especially, you'll want to get a German metallized cloth canopy to go over your bed, basically make your bed into a Faraday cage. If you're on the second floor, you have to put that same type of cloth underneath the bed, as well as on all four sides and the top of the bed. And
what is that? Can you say that a little bit slowly, what that is?
A German metallized cloth canopy. There's companies in Germany and Switzerland that make the cloth that you can make a canopy out of, like the canopies you see in the old movies, hanging over the bed out in the jungle to keep the mosquitoes out.
Oh, okay.
Except this cloth is keeping the electromagnetic mosquitoes out. And so when you put yourself inside of one of those canopies, you want to make sure it's a canopy that will shield up to 8 or 10 gigahertz, because now we have 4 gigahertz cell phone towers across the United States, and they're starting to build the 5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz cell phone towers. So pretty soon, who knows, they'll start doing the 8 gigahertz cell phone towers. But you have to have a type of mesh that will shield out that high frequency EMF, and then you go to your breaker box in your house, and you turn off the breakers that go to your bedroom before you get into bed at night, because the cloth canopy that shields out the high frequency will not shield out the low frequency that you get from the 50 hertz and 60 hertz electromagnetic coming in from the wall current and from the appliances in the bedroom. I've had patients before that were in a bedroom with alarm clock on either side of the bed and television plugged in at the foot of the bed, who both developed cancer, husband and wife both developed cancer, and just by unplugging those 3 appliances, their cancers both went away in 2 months' time without doing anything else.
How do you with all these different factors? How do you, as a physician, differentiate? Do you have like a checklist, and then you have them do all these things, and that's how you know?
Well, you got to think about all these things. First of all, most doctors don't even think about any of these things, and so you have to be aware, first of all, and then you keep let's say a low frequency meter in the office and a high frequency meter in the office that you can loan out to your patients or rent out to your patients to go take measurements in their house and see if EMF is an issue. If it's not, then you scratch that one off the list. If they don't know whether they have mold or fungus in their house, then they can do little culture plates to find out if there's mold or fungus growing in the house. If there is, then they search for the source and clean up the water and do the remediation in the building materials and get rid of all the mold and fungus. These issues are greater factors in cancer causation, I believe, than pesticides and herbicides even.
Really? Would you say it's the largest factor that you deal with in your practice in terms of a causation?
Well, for sure, it's the greatest unrecognized causation. Most people now are at least aware of pesticides and herbicides being harmful to the health. What to do about that is a bigger and bigger challenge all the time.
Right.
But very few people, including almost all allopathic doctors and most integrative doctors, are not aware of how significant a factor the electromagnetic fields and the mycotoxins and mold and fungus are in the causation of chronic disease, including cancer.
Wow. What about structured? I've heard that structured water can offset the EMFs around a house. Have you found that to be true?
Nope.
No, you haven't found it to be true?
No, no. It's important to get in some structured water every day to try to flush the toxins out of your cells, because the cells won't detoxify with standard water. The most structured of all water is the water that's mixed in with the juice, the fresh organic vegetables that we juice. The very most structured water is from living plants.
Okay. So if people get fresh vegetable juices every day, then they're getting that inherently.
Yeah, but not vegetables that are loaded with pesticides and herbicides.
Organic.
Glyphosate, also known as Roundup, is
Right.
so prevalently used in the United States. 2.1 billion pounds sprayed in the United States alone last year. And if you, statistically speaking, if it rained anywhere in the United States, there was a 70% chance there would be Roundup in the rain. So,
Wow.
so when you say, okay, well, I'm eating organic, well, no, you're probably not, unless the organic was grown inside of a greenhouse that had charcoal filters on the air intake for the greenhouse, because otherwise you're getting in, Roundup with the air that the plants are being exposed to.
So, given that, can I move to ask you about detoxification now?
Yeah.
Because I mean, clearly, like from an internal, a microbiome, even a perspective, people obviously more people know about the necessity for detoxification now more than ever. It's such a big word. How do people know what to detox, where to detox, how to detox? Because there's so many ways you can do it. Go to Hippocrates for a week and do juice fasting. You can do your own internal detoxification with certain chelating elements at home. Do you have a kind of a general detoxification methodology or protocol that most people can find to be valuable?
Yes. First of all, you don't have to know the name of each toxin that's coming out in order to be successful. And so many people think
the organ they live in, or the organ they live in, right?
Right. You don't have to know either one.
Yeah.
You just have to know that you have to detox on a regular basis in order for the toxins of our world to not get ahead of you. And so if you've never detoxed before, then you've got a backlog that you're going to have to work on for a while to get to the point where you can hopefully return to some level of health. When a person has a symptom, they no longer have health. That's a very crude definition of health. The World Health Organization, basically says that health is being able to function at a very high level, and sustain very high, significant amounts of stress of different types without developing any symptoms. So that's a better definition of health. But anyway, when you do a juice fast, for example, periodically, you're going to get spontaneous detoxification of the body. Just overnight fasting will detoxify the body. If you eat until midnight and then go to bed and get up at 6 and start eating again, there's never any significant amount of spontaneous detoxification that occurs in the body. But if you stop eating, let's say at 5 p.m., and then the next day you don't eat until noontime, then you're going to have all those hours to get some spontaneous detoxification because of the fasting process. The body always detoxifies toxins whenever it's fasting. Mm-hmm. That's why they call the first meal of the day break fast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're breaking the fast.
At least a minimum of 12 hours.
Yeah, 12 to 18 hours would be best.
Yeah.
And so then in addition to that, let's say that initially one day a week you do only organic juiced vegetables during the day, during the hours of the day that you're consuming some type of calories. Mm-hmm. And you're not consuming anything that would add more toxins to your load that's already there. So what happened in that period of time is that the last meal that you ate, it's at 5 p.m. the night before.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. Hold on. I'm on a call. And so if you're getting a last meal at 5 p.m.
A meal at 5, and then the next morning you're juicing.
Next morning you're juicing, and you juice for a few hours that day, and then you go to bed again without consuming a regular toxic meal, And then the following morning, you get up and wait until noon before you eat again. And how long was that? I mean, that's like, 36 hours or something like that.
Right, 36 hours-ish, yeah.
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 So you're fast. You're detoxing all the time that you're doing that fast, whether it's a water fast or whether it's a modified juice fast. And then once you're fasting for 1 day a week, then you say, well, I think I could do that 2 days a week. So then you do it two consecutive days. So then you're going 72 hours, without eating.
What about the glycogen element in that? Like, well, you've got beets or you've got carrots in there. Is that sugar element impacting the health of that fast?
Well, yeah, it does. And so, sugars are stimulating of insulin release, and insulin is a pro-inflammatory hormone, and inflammation is a hallmark of most chronic disease. So I don't usually advise people to juice fast with beets or carrots. I advise that they juice fast with cucumbers and zucchini squash and yellow summer squash, and with celery as the base, and then they add to that the dark green leafy vegetables, and they add to that some ginger and some lemon juice and some
No apples.
No apples, no fruits, no starchy vegetables. And so they're getting the maximum benefit of that fast when they avoid the fruits and the starchy vegetables.
Okay. So that's kind of a basic detox that, hey, I've never done anything like this before. That would be like a good way for somebody to start.
Yeah, so they can take the juice as often as they need to during the day. You can make up a quart or even 2 quarts of juice at the beginning of the day, and just do that. Anytime you feel a little bit hungry, you drink some more juice.
Right.
And a lot of people get panicky. Oh, I can't go that long without food. Well, yeah, you can.
Right. What about when people feel kind of woozy like that? I think that's what they get nervous about.
Well, they're hypoglycemic, and they're hypoglycemic because they've been pounding on their adrenal glands so long that their adrenal glands can no longer kick out cortisol to bring their blood sugar up, and their liver is toxic and can no longer release glycogen because it's not storing glycogen when it's toxic, and so they have no way to get their blood sugar back up. But if you have 2 quarts of vegetable juice or juiced up, you're getting a trickle of sugar into your bloodstream all day long. You won't get hypoglycemia.
Okay, all right. So after people have done that level, is there a more advanced level, or expanding that is kind of your idea?
No. That's only the very beginning. So people should try to do infrared saunas if they can. If they can't afford an infrared sauna, then they can do what I call a poor man's infrared sauna. A poor man's infrared sauna looks like this. You get a $20 electric heater that you plug into your smallest bathroom, and you go to the hardware store and buy a trouble lamp. That's a lamp that the mechanics use to work under the hood of the car so they can see what they're working on.
Yeah.
A trouble lamp's a long cord that plugs into the wall, and in the end of that cord is a socket for a light bulb and a cage around it so you don't break the light bulb. And so at the same hardware store, you buy an infrared bulb that you would screw into the ceiling of the bathroom if you had an infrared bulb in the ceiling of your bathroom. And then you buy a little hook. And so the hook is to hook into the ceiling in the center of the bathroom. And then you plug in your trouble lamp, you put your electric bulb into it, you hang it on the hook above the center of the bathroom, you put a chair in the bathroom, you strip naked, you take some calcium bentonite clay or some other good quality clay and some warm water and start painting an area about the size of your head on your body. The clay will pull the toxins out of that part of your body while your body's heating up, and when you're sweating a bit and the clay's completely dried, then you jump in the shower and wash all that down the drain. The next time you do it, you do an area of clay about the size of 2 heads. The next time 3 heads, next time 4 heads, and eventually you're covering the entire surface of the body. Clay is an excellent detoxification agent.
What about, because I know infrared, if you get the sunlight saunas or some of the big ones, they can be really expensive, but what about the kind, I've used the ones with just you having your head out of that, where they're the tent, like those are only $150 to $200 that people can get online, so they're much more affordable. Are they okay, or do they have too many EMFs to be of benefit?
Some of them are fairly low EMF. For example, the Therasage brand is very low EMF, THERASAGE.
Okay.
But some of the others, you're right, are extremely high EMF, and you can find out easily enough by buying a $35 to $50 low frequency EMF meter, and taking that to the store where these saunas are sold, or go to a friend's house who already got one of those saunas and go inside the sauna and take the measurements with the EMF meter inside the sauna. If you're getting above 1 mellogauss of low frequency EMF generated there, that's too much. Ideal for human health is less than 0.5.
What about another kind of physical detox, sauna-ish kind of thing, is a foot detox, an eye and foot detox? What do you think about those as a form of effective detoxification?
The ion foot detox can be beneficial. The original ion detox was actually made in Australia, and the very first design was great for the purpose of detoxing the body, because it had one electrode on one side of the bath where the feet were, and the other electrode on the other side of the bath where the feet were, and the electrons flowed from one electrode through the body and to the other electrode. And so that particular design resulted in quite a bit of electrical charge going into the body to bind positively charged molecules and pull them out into the foot water or into the bloodstream, so they could go out through the liver and the gallbladder and the bowel, or through the kidneys and the urinary bladder and toilet. Mm-hmm. And some bright guy in the United States, I don't know who the heck that was, but he decided to put both electrodes in one gadget that you sit down in between the feet in the bath tub, the bath.
That foot tub, yeah.
Foot tub. And so what he found is that those work a whole lot less well than the old ones. But anybody that knows any kind of electrical work can actually rewire one of those improperly designed ones so that it has an electrode over on one side and the other electrode on the other side and the feet in between. And you can buy an inexpensive ion foot cleanse off of Amazon for about $64, along with the tub, and then just get somebody to rewire it, and then you get tremendous benefit from that. And so
if people can't afford infrared saunas, this is a good second possibility for them.
Yeah, this gets charged particles out of the body. It does not remove benzene, xylene, toluene, hexane, pentane, octane, gasoline, things that have no charge. But it will remove most pesticides, most herbicides, heavy metals, radioactive elements, and so on. The best way to remove the radioactive elements and heavy metals, by the way, is to take some cilantro about 20 minutes before you're going to do the ion foot cleanse, and then when you do the ion foot cleanse, you've already mobilized from the cells a lot of the heavy metals into the bloodstream, and then they'll go out through the skin in some cases, or at least through the kidney and urinary bladder and toilet.
That's a good reminder for people. And if people aren't aware of this, cilantro actually can come you can get it in a pill form. I've used it in a tincture form. You don't only, if you don't like cilantro, a lot of people don't like it. You're not relegated to eating it if you don't like it. So people aren't aware of that. What about chlorella? Do you think that chelates as well as cilantro? Do you like the cilantro better?
No, the cilantro, especially the alcoholic tincture of cilantro, will go across the blood-brain barrier into the brain and pull heavy metals out of the brain. Chlorella stays primarily in the gut and pulls metals out of the gut, but does not get into the bloodstream significantly, and doesn't pull heavy metals out of the brain or out of the other tissues very well. But it's good to have chlorella in the gut so that it can bind up the metals so that they don't get reabsorbed. As your body's clearing heavy metals from the body, some of them will go out through the urinary bladder, through the kidneys and urinary bladder, but others will go out through the liver and the gallbladder, and those get dumped into the small intestine. And in the small intestine, the bacterial metabolism will break the heavy metal loose from the glutathione or whatever it's attached to, and release it for reabsorption through the gut wall. But if chlorella's in there, or any other really good fiber like pectosol or psyllium or slippery elm or marshmallow root, then those fibers will bind the heavy metal and carry it on into the toilet so it doesn't get reabsorbed.
So you really could do both.
Yeah.
It'd be fine to do both. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to go back to, we just have a few more minutes here, and to really just to get into the things that you want to talk about. I just want to go back to some of the things that you had that you want to talk about. Did you have some other items on your agenda that you really wanted to get across or make sure people knew about, or there were some themes or some techniques or ideas? What are some other things that were important to you to talk about in this discussion?
Well, yeah, we've been talking about different types of toxins, but one of the most problematic toxins as far as cancer causation and cancer continuation is excessive acidity.
Yes.
So the acidity builds up in the tissues for a variety of reasons, but one of the most common reasons is because microbes, toxins get into our body. Toxins create an environment for microbes to grow. Microbes and toxins stimulate white cells to release cytokines. Cytokines are chemical messengers. And one of the functions of cytokines is to stimulate fibroblasts in the body to produce fibrin in the body. And fibrin plasters itself up against the capillary wall and restricts the movement of oxygen from red blood cells through the capillary wall into the tissues. So the tissues become starved of oxygen. And when the tissues are starved enough of oxygen, the cells have to go into anaerobic metabolism by necessity. And when they're in anaerobic metabolism, they produce a lot of lactic acid. So the lactic acid builds up and creates an environment that grows bugs and grows cancer cells. And so in order to...
Wait a minute, I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. Are you saying that lactic acid is kind of a precursor for an acidic pH?
Yeah, lactic acid builds up and creates an environment that's perfect for cancer to grow and for microbes to grow. And so when you will take a proteolytic enzyme like we talked about earlier, 30 minutes before food with water only in sufficient amounts, at least 2 or 3 times a day, that enzyme is not being used to digest food, because there is no food in the stomach at that time, because it's been at least 4 to 6 hours since the last meal.
Right.
And so that enzyme is absorbed through the intestinal wall into the bloodstream and travels through the bloodstream and digests fibrin that's plastered up against the capillary wall, which then allows the red blood cells to release their oxygen through the capillary wall into the tissues, so that the tissues then switch from anaerobic metabolism back to aerobic metabolism, and the lactic acid stops being formed. And then the cancer can go away and the microbes can be killed.
That's fascinating. So, like, one of the ways that you can automatically even out your pH would be to take a proteolytic enzyme before, like, 30, 45 minutes, an hour before you eat.
Yep. And practicing deep breathing. And, so we know that most people are stressed. Most people that are stressed breathe shallowly. People that breathe shallowly don't get enough oxygen into their bloodstream and don't get enough oxygen into their tissues. And as a result, are hypoxic, and then they go into lactic acidosis to varying degrees because of under breathing.
Wow.
And so just deep breathing. So that's one of the reasons why exercise is so beneficial in cancer, because when you exercise, you breathe more deeply, you pump more blood through your tissues. The blood is delivering more oxygen in the tissues, especially if you've taken a proteolytic enzyme 30 minutes before you exercise. And so you're starting to sweep that junk off the inner wall of your blood vessels so that you can get oxygen into the tissues again.
Wow, that's really fascinating. I'd never had that correlation with the proteolytic enzymes and the pH balancing as a precursor to avoiding cancer. Also, I think it's important for people to know, when you take the enzymes, don't you typically take 4 to 5 of them? They're not just taking one, right?
Correct. Usually you need at least 1,000 milligrams of bromelain, 2,400 units per gram. And you need at least probably 3 capsules of papaya leaf enzyme from Swanson, or you need 3 capsules of serapeptase from Nutrimetics, or you need 100 milligrams of nattokinase from Allergy Research Nutricology, or you need 2 capsules of lumbrokinase from either Maluki or from Allergy Research Group. And 30 minutes before food with water only, at least 2 or 3 times a day.
Wow, that tip alone for people, I think is just, I think that could increase people's performance, help them balance their pH, and help their systems function more effectively, ultimately help them detoxify. I mean, these are really fantastic tips, Dr. Cowden. I so appreciate you sharing this with us. I'm just noticing the time here, and unfortunately, we need to really move to wrap up. But I want to give you the opportunity, if there's anything else you want to say alongside the value that you've given us. Are there any other comments you want to make or themes you want to bring together?
Yeah. Go to bed by 9 p.m. Be asleep by 9 p.m. because the Chinese figured out 3,000 years ago that the endocrine glands of the body detoxify themselves between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. only if you're asleep. And
what if you can't go to sleep? I'm one of the people that cannot go to sleep that early. What if you're?
Well, no, you can, but you're gonna have to get rid of all the electromagnetic energies in your environment in order to be able to sleep, because the EMF is what keeps you awake.
Okay.
So as soon as the sun goes down, you put on blue blocker glasses, which you can buy for about $8 off of Amazon, and wear those blue blockers until you get ready to go to sleep at 9 o'clock. And from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. is when the gallbladder and bile ducts detoxify themselves. And then from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. is when the liver detoxifies itself. Now, the most toxic organs in the body are usually the liver, gallbladder, and the lymphatic system. Lymphatic system is toxic because people don't move. You need to be exercising every day to get the lymphatics to be pumped clean with the skeletal muscle contraction around the limbs. Yeah,
and lymphatic massage is not only healthy, but it's also delicious to experience and very wonderfully relaxing.
Yeah.
So people might want to think about that as well.
Yeah, bouncing on a rebounder is great for the lymphatics. Getting a chi machine, which you can buy off of Amazon for $100, to do that in a relaxed fashion, laying on your floor with your ankles up on the chi machine, gradually, slowly moving your ankles side to side and pumping the lymph on back to your central circulation.
Wow. Well, this has been so helpful, so informative. Any other last words? That was really great about the sleep. Thank you for that. Anything else you want to impart?
Yes. If a person believes that they're not going to live because of whatever condition they have, then they're not going to live. But if you can change your belief system that you do have an opportunity to live, just because some doctor said you can't live doesn't mean you can't live, because that doctor is not God. They don't know whether you can or cannot live. So change your attitude, and then once you've changed your attitude, stick to your guns. Don't let somebody dissuade you again. Yes, thank you for that. If people want to contact you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you? Everybody that's listening should become a member of our academy. You can become a free member of the academy. www.acimconnect.com. That stands for Academy of Comprehensive Integrative Medicine, acimconnect.com. And when they're a free member there, then they can send a message through that to get to me. Fantastic. I would love to have, because I saw a little bit about that. That's its own topic. I'd love to even have a separate conversation with you about that, interview you on that to get that out. It looks like a wonderful service to the world to have more people, more medical professionals in that world to really bring these worlds together and educate people on all the different ways that they can support their own lives and get healthy. So thank you for doing that. Yeah, it's an important thing, and people can actually go in there and become a wellness coach themselves, even if they're have no medical background at all, and they can help themselves, initially their family members, their friends, and eventually others. That's great. Thank you so much for doing that, and thank you so much for your time today for this interview. You're impacting other people's lives. You certainly impacted mine. I got some really great ideas, information, and tips from you. So thank you so much. Thank you for all you're doing to support the world and being a healthier place. All right. Well, thank you for doing the interview. Yeah, my pleasure. All right. Bye-bye.